Hi guys, so I've just filmed my birth video. This is going to be a completely different video in the sense of what it's about, because that was about the whole situation that I went through to have a baby 12 weeks early and things like that, whereas this is going to be what it's like now to have the baby um, on neonatal, because as I explained in that video that I didn't have anybody to talk to or ask anything to. Um, I'm just going to explain a bit about my channel just before we get into it, because obviously I am new. So I'm going to be uploading every Wednesday and Sundays, probably about 5 p.m, like tea time. And I've got some videos planned up until March, but obviously if there's anything that you'd like to see, like I know I'm not like a big YouTuber or anything, so if there's no suggestions, that's fine. I have got videos planned. But if there's anything that you'd like to know, whether it be about me having a baby, anything baby related or makeup related or anything like that, like just let me know and I'll be happy to film them if I can do so. But right now I'm just gonna try and give some insight into what it's like to have a baby on neonatal. I'm not an expert by all means, like I'm not a doctor, so anything that I do say, I won't be saying anything that I can't back up that I don't know. If there's anything that you'd like to ask me about this subject, if I can't answer, I'll try and find out for you. But this has just been my personal experience. I can't speak for everybody. Everybody's baby is different. Everybody's situation is different, especially in these circumstances. So, yeah. So basically, I had my baby on 25th of August due to me having preeclampsia. We was basically poisoning each other. Like, we weren't healthy for each other. It wasn't safe for him to be inside me, and it wasn't safe for me to have him inside me. So he was delivered under an emergency C-section. So I wasn't able to deliver naturally. So that was on the 25th of August. As I explained in my previous video, I was sent home 2 days later. He stayed in hospital, which was 40 minutes away from me, because we had to get transferred to somewhere that wasn't local to us, because they didn't have any neonatal beds. This neonatal unit was quite small in the comparison to the one that he moved to when later on, because he did get moved back closer to us. But this one was quite small, but it was brilliant. The nurses were amazing. They talked you through everything. They'd answer any questions that you'd ask, even if you want to ask them multiple times. If you didn't understand something at all, like me, I was quite dazed in the time that I was there because I just had a major operation. So in the time that I was there, I probably asked the same question a few times. They didn't care. They obviously understand that you're in a situation you didn't expect to be in. Yes, excuse me, I've got a cup of tea. But basically, he got delivered on the 25th. He went straight into an incubator because of how small he was. He was 12 weeks early, so he was meant to be born on the 16th of November and was born on the 25th of August. So it was quite a long, 3 month early. So it's quite a long period of time to be delivered in because it was really early. He had to have breathing help. He had a tube down his throat at first to help him. And then they have different types of breathing help. So it was like CPAP, which is something that goes up your nose to help you breathe. And then BiPAP is just like little prongs, like as a human, as a adult would have if there was needed help breathing. It was just like two prongs up his nose. I think it's that way around. But they're both called BiPAP and CPAP, so whichever way around they're both pretty much help him breathe, but there's different like levels. One's stronger than the other, and one helps him a bit more. So he'd gone down to that, I think, within the first week. Like he'd gone down to the nose prongs within the first week. I remember holding him, I think, on the Wednesday, and he was on the higher level one then. He had like the mask on his nose rather than just the prongs. And I got to hold him. We both got to hold him. Not for very long because obviously the whole his whole body was a lot like, as much as he looked like a normal baby, he wasn't fully formed, so like he couldn't hold his own temperature. Like he had to be in an incubator, which obviously keeps him warm, so the longer he's out, the more risky it is for him. And there's a lot of things like his ears are very sensitive, so you can't be really loud. Like they had signs in there that lit up when you was too loud. So you obviously had to talk quietly, and you could touch him, but there was only like me and my partner allowed to touch him. Like you could put your hands in to change his bum, but I was only me and my partner allowed. Like my mum wasn't, and stuff like that, due to like infection. We were allowed to do those things. Like they taught us how to change his bum in an incubator, because obviously it's hard enough changing a baby's bum when they're just born and you don't know what you're doing. So can you like imagine trying to do it in a tiny box? Like it's a lot harder than it is basically. And we got taught how to do all these things, and obviously we was there every day. Like I think out of the whole 10 weeks I maybe missed 2 days, and that wasn't really by choice. Like we had a child's party one time, and I think the other time me and my partner just did something together. But obviously you can imagine you want to be with your baby every day. It was a lot harder being away from home, in the sense of the hospital was quite far away, but it was still hard regardless whether it was close to me or away from me. So we was at the faraway hospital for a week, and then he was able to be moved, because obviously you've got to think moving is a big process for them. They're small, they haven't got the protection, and as much as it's in an incubator, it can be stressful for them because they've been born when they're not meant to. They're not even meant to be in this world yet, let alone being moved from place to place. So when he was fit to be moved, which was a week later, he got moved back to my town, and he got put in an incubator just the same, apart from this ward was quite bigger. Like it was a lot bigger than the one that he was previously in. I think it was made, like it was a new unit, so it was made for quite a lot more babies than the other unit was. I think it had 5 beds either side, well 5 incubators either side, and then it had 3 rooms, and then the other room was for babies that was ready, like nearly ready to go home basically. So there wasn't in an incubator, there was in a cot warmer or just a cot. So he got to the hospital that we were gonna move to about 7 p.m. on, I think it was the Monday or the Tuesday the following week. So we didn't transfer with him, we wasn't allowed in the ambulance, so we followed behind, and we got there at the same time as him, but we didn't really get a chance to hold him or anything because it was a big journey for him, so they basically just wanted to get him settled just so that he got back to normal. So he got there and it was fine. All the journey went fine. Apparently he just slept. Like I was worried sick, but he just slept and he was fine. And even when he got to Barnsley, he was fine. I know I didn't mention the name of the hospital, but I think by my accent you're probably going to be able to tell where we was. I don't really want to mention the hospital too much, just purely because I'm not going to say anything wrong, but if anything got picked up, I don't want to be sort of told off for anything I do say, because they was brilliant. But as you can imagine, as a mum, there's a lot of things that I did worry about, and I'm not going to say anything wrong, but in case something gets took the wrong way or anything, I don't want to keep mentioning them. So I'm just going to refer to it as the hospital, because there was 2 hospitals, and the one closest to me, as you can probably tell by my accent, is where I'm from. So that's another reason why I didn't want to mention it. But yeah, so he got to the other hospital about 7 p.m. that night. We went home pretty much after he got settled, just to let him get settled as well. So we went home. We was able to ring when we wanted. They gave us a number. We was able to ring just for updates, just to make sure he was fine. When there was nothing to worry about. Otherwise, we'd have been called in, and they would have called us. And yeah, we pretty much, for the rest of the 10 weeks, we got up every morning and we went to the hospital. That was basically our routine. We went there, we stayed till, I think it was 6:30, 7 at night, and we'd go home and ring 3 times before bed and then once in the morning, and that was our routine. Like, nothing ever changed, really. Even when he got moved to the other room where the cots are, like, nothing really changed. So he was in the big room, which was basically for the more high dependency babies, because obviously he was so small, he needed a lot of looking after, he needed to be able to be seen all the time and things like that. He was in there for, I'd say, like 3 weeks. he kept getting moved further and further down, so like towards being out of that room. And nothing really happened. He'd get put up on his food, which is, it started, I think it was 4 mil of food. He'd get put through a tube. He wasn't obviously able to suckle or anything like that yet. I think that doesn't happen till 34 weeks. And he got put on 4 mil, and then it kept going up as he could tolerate it. So just as a precaution, like obviously if you put a baby on 7 mil of food that he's never had before, it's a lot for them to handle. I mean, he was breastfed for the first, I want to say 6 weeks, because I stopped producing it, just basically because I think it was because he wasn't latching on. So I was doing it when I was at home, but he wasn't there, so it was kind of like, I knew I was doing it, but obviously your body thinks, well, you're not, nobody's actually feeding from it. So I think it was just stopping, and it got to the point where I weren't producing enough, and it was hurting me, and it wasn't best, because obviously if you don't feel your best, you're not the best, and your milk's not going to be the best. So I stopped, and he eventually went on to formula, which has helped him, and he's fine. Like, as much as I was never going to breastfeed anyway, but I obviously did it to give him the best start. And I think it's a big topic to go into, because obviously some people think breastfeeding is the best and they should breastfeed no matter what, and other people don't do it at all regardless. So I think it's just an opinion thing. I was never going to breastfeed, but I did it out of the wellness of my baby. He needed it, and I did it, and I did it until I physically couldn't anymore, and that's that. He went on to formula. So yeah, it was in that room. It was fine. He was feeding fine. Everything was fine. He got a little infection on his belly button because his umbilical cord hadn't fell off yet, which is fine. It was treated with antibiotics, and it went down. The redness and everything went down. He then got moved, I think it was after 3 weeks, into like this little bay which was next to that room. It was like a private room, I'd say. Like, people could walk through it, but they didn't, because there was doors on either side. So it was pretty private. You was on your own. He was in there for a day, and then he had a little bit of a setback, which was really scary. I'm not really going to go into detail of his health, because that's not really something I want to put out there. Like, it's not really necessary. The babies have setbacks in neonatal, unless, I think you'll find it's very rare that they don't have anything like to go back on. Like, I think it's very rare that you'll find that you just smooth sail the whole way through. I mean, it happened I think twice with Leo, but I think considering that was lucky. And there was, the setbacks that he had was nothing he could help. So I was quite grateful that it's not something that he wasn't able to do. It's just something that he couldn't help, and he needed help with. So that's what basically all I'm going to go into. But he had a couple of setbacks, which meant he went back into that room. I don't think he was in there long. I think he was in there long enough to recover and long enough to get over it, and then he went back into that room. And from there he kind of went upwards. He just sort of, like, it was still being fed through a tube for a little while. I can't remember the exact time frames of things as well, but like, obviously there was a whole 10-week period. Things happened, he progressed, he went backwards and things like that. So I'm just going to sort of say things as it went, rather than 3 weeks later he did this, because I can't really remember like the exact dates and times he did things. But I think roughly about, I'd say about 34 weeks we started him on a bottle. I think it was literally like the Sunday he was 34 weeks. We started trying him with a bottle. I think it was only 2 mil at a time, because obviously he was being used to fed through a tube, and they gave him a dummy so that he was suckling, he was learning to suckle, but obviously it tired him. 2 mil to him that he's having to work for is a lot. So I remember him at first being really well with it. He took the first 2 mil like it was nothing, like he loved it. And then I remember a few days later he'd go backwards and only have 1 mil and just not want it. And it tired him out. So it's a lot for them, and I think as a parent it's not really nice, because you think, oh, we're getting somewhere, and then we're not. And it's not their fault. They're young, and they're really small and really tiny, and everything's tiring for them. But as a mum, you sat there and you think, oh, I just want to get out of here, and I want to have my baby at home. And it's not selfish, because you don't expect to go through that situation, but at the same time you want the best for them, so you're there. And it's really up and down circumstance. You just get through it, and there's more than one occasions where you sit there and you think, is this ever going to end? And that's not me being morbid or anything like that. You just sit there and you think, I've been here 5 weeks now. And it feels like a long time because you sat there every day. And I was sat there 12 hours a day just being with my baby, so I didn't really have a break. But yeah, and he'd feed on a bottle. He'd be tube fed, he'd feed on a bottle, and it kind of went back and forth, and it was still in an incubator at this point. And then when he was holding his own temperature, so he could come out with a hat and a cardigan on, and as long as he was staying the same temperature, he got put onto a cot warmer, which is basically like a cot, and it just has a mattress underneath that heats. That's like a heated mattress basically, and he'd lay on that. He went up and down on that. He stayed in the cot warmer. He never went back in an incubator after that. He stayed on the cot warmer, but they just had to keep adjusting the temperature. So like, he'd go a week and he'd maintain his temperature, and then he'd go down to 35, which is still alright, but still a bit cold. I think the range is 36 to 37, so you can be 36.5 upwards, I think, or something like that. It's a very small window, but when it dropped to 36.5, 36.4, that's when they'd put him up on his incubator, on his cot warmer, sorry, and you'd have to put him back in, like you couldn't hold him. But majority of the time we did get to hold him, we did get to have him out. I don't remember at what week that people was allowed to hold him, but maybe it was 34 weeks. I think that's when the classroom was like formed, because obviously the last few weeks is just them basically growing and getting ready to come out. So I think from 34 weeks onward you are allowed to have people hold him, but it's at your discretion. So they don't advise you to let loads of people hold him, like all your family, but like say my mum and dad, and then his mum and dad can hold him. And that's what we did. We let the smallest of family hold him, because obviously when they come out, everybody can hold him when they want and stuff like that. But obviously in them circumstances, you don't want him to get poorly, you don't want him to catch anything. And yeah, that's another thing I will say. Unless you have kids under 16 that are their siblings, they're not allowed in the unit. And I think that's pretty much the same for all units because of the risk of infection. So that's something I will say. That kind of affected me quite a lot because I do have a little sister, and she's 8, and she wasn't allowed to see him until he came out of hospital. So obviously 10 weeks without being able to see him was a lot for her, because she'd see people go to the hospital and she'd see pictures of him, but she wasn't allowed to actually physically see him, and I think that upset her quite a lot. But then at the same time, when he came home, she was happy and she got to meet him and she loves him, and I think they're going to be inseparable. But obviously that can affect him, and same with my partner's brothers as well. They wasn't allowed to see him because I think they're 9 and 11. And that was hard because they come from quite a long way, so when they did come, they'd have to sit outside the ward while their mum saw him. So like it was just it's more like of a thing is like they were probably bored as well. Like you're just sitting outside a hospital ward for like pretty much 2 days straight. It's a lot. So that's one thing I will say, which was upsetting a bit for me because I wanted my sister to see him. But yeah, so in that room we went up and down in the sense of the bottle feeding. 1 week we'd get somewhere, another week we wouldn't. And then it got to the point where it was pretty much having full bottles, but they kept the tube in case. And they did that even when he got moved into the other room on the cot warmer. So the room that he was in last was before he went home. And I think he was in there another 3 weeks before he did go home. In these time periods as well, he had eye tests and ear tests and stuff like that, just to make sure that everything was fine. I think he'd have an eye test every week, which that included having drops into your eyes to dilate your eyes. And then I didn't actually see the process of it being done because I remember the nurses telling me that it wasn't pleasant to watch. So at the times that he had those, I left the room. Any other things? He did have I think he had his first and second lot of injections in the hospital. Oh no, he didn't. He had his first lot of injection in the hospital, and I think that was a week he came home, or the week before. I think the week before he came home. Actually, I think it was a Thursday, and he came home the Tuesday after. he had his first lot of injections before he came home, and then obviously when he come home, he had them at the doctor's. Um, and yeah, and I think like a lot of it is waiting. Um, you can't tell your baby you are going to feed your bottle at this point and we are going to go home at this point. They do it when they're ready, and you can't force that upon them. And I think it's kind of frustrating because, like with Leo, it was I'd see him have a full bottle and he could take it perfectly, but then the next day he'd not do it. And you sit there thinking, well, you've done it the day before, why can't you do it again? And it wasn't in a nasty way, it was just like, I know you can do it. And I think it got more frustrating because there were so many hurdles to cross before he could come home and they seemed so far away. But then at the last minute, they'd all come together and you'd be like, oh my god, he's doing everything, like he could be coming home. And then the best feeling ever is like, you maybe could go home next week. And it's a really emotional thing to go through. I mean, at the time, you don't really go through them emotions, if you know what I mean. Like, you don't sit back and think, this is happening. It's when it's happened and you're like, oh my god, we went through this. And it's hard. And all I'll tell people if you're going through it, make sure you talk to people. Because as much as people explain things to you, you'll never really understand why things happen. And like, I'd also get told a few different things by different people, and it wasn't because they were trying to tell me different things, it's just their expertise was different. So somebody might think, oh, it might go home in a couple of weeks, somebody might think it might go home in a month, and they always tell you to aim for your due date. So he came home on the 29th of October and my due date was the 16th of November, so it was pretty close to it, but they could also run over the due date as well. But like I say, it's all just different depending on your baby. I mean, we were lucky in the sense of he was fine, but he was just small and he had a few setbacks. Whereas I think there's babies in there that had a lot more wrong with them than mine did. So I think another thing you've got to consider is like me telling you my story now, it might not go the same. Things could happen, things couldn't happen. They could also progress really well, and you could come home a lot sooner than I did, or at the same time I did. I think it all just depends on your baby, and you're never going to be able to predict what's going to happen because things can go really well, things can then drop back, and that's what it is. It's just waiting, and it's waiting for things to fall into place. And at that time, I was like, when is this going to happen? But I can tell you it does, and it just happens like that. Like, you just don't think about it and it comes. I remember when I was there, it was straining. I had a few times where I cried, but I don't think it was because of what was happening. I think it was because you get so overwhelmed because you're sitting there all the time watching your baby, and it's not boring as well. Like, another thing, you'd think it'd be boring just sitting and staring, but the things that they do every day amaze you. Like, they're so small, but they overcome so much, and I think that's what pushes you through, because if they can do it, you can. And it's just a lot, and I'll be forever grateful that we got this chance to like bond more, because as much as of a horrible situation it were, and I would never wish it upon anyone, it helped us because we got to do all those things like together. And it's not a nice thing to go through, but at the same time, every little thing that they do, you celebrate because they're doing this for the first time. And I suppose in a way as well it helps you, because you know, like when you have a baby, normally you just get sent home and you don't get any help. And as much as I wouldn't wish it on myself or anybody again, we had that head start in the sense where we got shown how to do everything. And now we've come home, we don't ask as many questions. Like, we're not like, how do you change his bum, how do you even bath? Like, we got taught all those things, and that's one of the upsides to it. You get a lot of help. But yeah, I don't think there's anything I've missed. I'm not going to go into detail about what actually with him went wrong, because I don't want to. I don't want to do that. But the setbacks that he had got fixed, and he overcame them again quite quickly and went up. So as much as they go backwards, they go upwards the same way, and it's just the way it is. I don't think there's anything I've missed. Like I said in the previous video, I will write things down if I have missed anything. But I think that's it. So, yeah, that's everything. So if you've got any questions or anything, just comment below and I'll do my best to answer them the best I can. If I have missed anything, I'll write below, and if you've got any questions regarding that as well, just let me know. But thank you for watching. I'm just happy that I've been able to talk about this and hopefully help other people. even if it hasn't helped other people, like I've got it out there, and I've got it as a story that I can then look back on and sort of be grateful that I've gone through it as well, and my baby's okay. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.